Hi team! Today is Saturday, the 18th of September, and it is apparently BIPOC Vamp Day, which is very exciting. I am not a vamp today, however. Vampires are awesome, but I have work to do, so we're going to get into this Tudor gown. I have everything. I have everything to do. The only thing I've done so far is iron my patterns. I'll be using the Margot Anderson Tudor Ladies Wardrobe gown patterns. I am doing view A with a train, and I believe the different views have to do with the type of sleeve. So I'll be using the square sleeve. I think I'm probably going to downsize it a bit. It kind of depends on how it looks with the 4 sleeve, but that is thinking very far in the future because right now I have nothing else done and less than 2 weeks until Tudorcon. So let's get started. There isn't a great deal of deviation from the pattern because it's a great pattern and I was in a hurry. To begin, I trace my patterns onto packing paper, always save your packing paper, with the help of my light board. Based upon the instructions, I'll be combining sizes to accommodate my bust waist measurement and my shoulder measurement. I use different colored pencils for each, then rulers to make the new lines. I also shorten the pattern pieces to fit my underarm to waist length. Since I'm pretty familiar with how the adjustments are made, I did a quick check against the kirtle to make sure that my gown pattern pieces were close to the correct size. Then I traced a fresh set of pattern pieces for any that are too marked up to make sense. The most important part of that is to write the seam allowance on the pattern piece. I usually base how much I take out of the torso on how wrinkly my mock-up is by just pinching out that fabric. Speaking of which, here's the mock-up, which is going to become my flat lining. This is made of canvas and home decor scraps from my stash, with the addition of some eyelet tape that I picked up a few years ago. Now we're at the fun part. This is the gold and gold jacquard from Fabric Wholesale Direct. I picked which side was the right side based upon how it looked against one of the 4 sleeves. It has a width of 118 inches and is 100% polyester. I decided to start with the back pieces and work my way around so that I could at least do a little bit of pattern matching. Once I picked my center motif, I marked the seam allowance on the pattern, which I probably should have done in the beginning. Then I marked it up with chalk. After that was cut out, I hand basted the seam line so that it would be easier to get the motif centered properly. I gave a hearty attempt at continuing the fabric's motif around to the sides, but those sections will be largely hidden by my sleeves, so I didn't spend a lot of time on it. Once all of the pieces were cut, I moved on to flatlining and serging. This fabric frays like a lot. It's pretty, just really fiddly. Now we're getting into the gown construction. The front panel needs boning for the lacing, and then it'll be piped around the edge for structure and some small tightening adjustments during the final fitting. There's a lot of pinning so that all of the bodice marks can be lined up properly. At the center back, a bit of tape goes in the stress point at the V. It's not fun to stitch, but it works. Shoulder seams are annoying, but I know that the neckline has to match up, so that's where I focus my pinning, and any differences in the sleeve seam edge can be worked out. Stitching piping around the neckline can be frustrating, but again, it's necessary. There were some sections in the arm side where I had to add bits of flatlining after the fact, so that's what I'm doing here. I'm using heavy-duty zip ties for boning. They were pulled from an old gown, so I didn't have to go through cutting new ones. I use my Simflex gauge to mark the eyelets for spiral lacing on the outside. This is where I went off book and added my lining, since the pattern manual adds the eyelets before lining happens. I have the first edition of this pattern, so that may have changed, or there's a reason for it that I'm missing. I pin the lining to the bodice, matching seams, and rolling the piping just to the inside so that it won't be seen on the outside. The instructions note that self-fabric or matching piping is the way to go. I still haven't recovered from the piping in my Hamilton Spencer, so I opted for some pre-made gold piping from the stash, which is the same that I used in the 4 sleeves. Moving on to the skirts, the center front edges are turned in and hem stitched in place over the lining. I had already hemmed the entire skirt by machine, laying the pieces right side to right side, stitching it a 5/8 inch, then turning and pressing the lining just inside of the hem. Now, the seams of the lining are matched to the outer fabric seams and basted with some crappy sewing kit thread and thread magic, since the crappy thread can't take wax but also refuses to glide through fabric without assistance. These large basting stitches will help keep everything in place so that I can close the skirt's waist seam evenly. Both sides are turned in and whip stitched. I think it's a whip stitch. Whatever, it doesn't take too long. Time to pleat the skirt back and sides into the bodice. This always starts out with me doubting my ability to get a whole lot of fabric into a very small back bodice piece, but it always works out. I can't explain the pleating process that's in the Margot Anderson manual in any way that will make sense, but there's a lot of whip stitching. Setting the front waist seam, however, is the absolute worst, and this really took a long, upsetting amount of time and walking away, so we're not going to talk about it. After that's done, though, I repinned the lining in place and hand-stitched it down, catching the flat lining but not the fashion fabric. I left the lining open at the top of the front seam so that I can tighten the cord during the final fitting. The gown is mostly constructed, and I realized during editing that I didn't record any of the sleeve construction. I had just enough leftover brown silk taffeta from Burnley and Trowbridge to make the sleeve lining and didn't have to cut down any of the pattern. Other than taking the time to baste the sleeves and try on the gown over the underpinnings until it's right, this part wasn't too bad. I ended up with only a tiny pleat at the back of each armscye, which I was able to match up with the bodice seams. I serged the inside of the sleeve seam rather than binding it. Then it's time to start the eyelets, so I go through my embroidery tin to find some coordinating thread and settle on a cream from DMC. The eyelets are then done in the usual way. Moving on to the placard, I chose a center motif in the fabric based upon where my tiger's eye pendant would sit. The pattern piece is pinned down, traced with heat erasable pen, then flipped to the other side for the same. Since I'm still working from scraps and have no buckram on hand, I use a layer of canvas from an old bodice and a layer of sturdy cotton for the insides. Despite doing nearly the same in my other Tudor gown and being severely annoyed that the placard was super wibbly, I have great disappointment in my actions here. In hindsight, I should have used heavy-duty interfacing like I did for my portrait gown, but I can add that before the next wear. The layers are stitched together, serged, piped, and the lining is pinned into place. team. Today is Monday. I don't know what day of the month it is. I think maybe the 27th. I don't know why I don't just check every single time. Today is Monday, September 27th, 2021, and I have only a couple of days until Tudorcon, which is fun and exciting and also crunchy. So I don't even know what kind of footage I've been recording because I had a cold last week, and so that took up a huge chunk of my sewing and preparation time. I have nothing done. I haven't even prepped the house for the sitter yet. Hi, Mom. Thanks. I need to... We'll just go around the room and see what's still open. So over here, I have the sleeves, the placard. This part is mostly done. I think I showed that to you. I don't have the attachment figured out yet. The last time I did one of these, I did whip stitch down one side and then I pinned the other side. I haven't quite decided how I'm going to attach it yet. Magnets kind of flitted through my mind since I use those for cosplay, specifically props and things, but I don't know if I have enough magnets left in the house. So, yeah, so I need to figure out that attachment point. I am hand stitching the hem on the gown right now. That is a couch project. That is something I can do while I'm watching TV, so that I can kind of double up spending time with the family while getting this last bit of sewing done. But I have to do the whole hem on the gown, and I have to put the rest of the eyelets in the gown. What else is left? Everything is left, and that's okay. I've crunched before. I'm calm. My blood pressure doesn't agree, but I'm calm. So the English/gable hood is what I'm working on, kind of parallel to all of that couch sewing that needs to get done. I'm currently putting the wire, and it's sitting over here. That's why I keep looking off camera. I have to attach the wire to the pieces. I think I went with the size medium, and I couldn't find any sizing instructions for the hood. So we're just kind of winging it, and since it's, week of, I don't have any other options, and I'm not going in with an undressed head. What's important is I am furiously adding this wire to the gable hood, English hood situation. I'm using plastic canvas for that per the instructions in the Margot Anderson pattern book. What else? So I'm hoping to get that done. It should fit fine. I don't know. And at this point, I don't care. If I can get it done, if I can get it done in time, then I'm wearing it. Doesn't matter what size it is. I did not a mock-up, but I did start with the largest box size and then kind of maneuvered it to see how big it would be on my head. Once I have the wire attached to the frame, I'll know better if that size is actually going to work or not. I then need to also pack. I have nothing packed. I still need to make a couple of adjustments to my Sunday gown. I don't even think I went down what I plan on wearing. Okay, super quick because I do have to start working very soon. So we have potentially an outing on Friday afternoon, kind of before things get started, and that'll just be regular clothes. I'll drive up, go do the little lunch or whatever, and then the Friday night party is where I'll be wearing this sunflower gown, we're calling it. And then Saturday I have planned for a mundane outfit, and then also my Star Wars kirtle and waistcoat combination. The kirtle isn't Star Wars, but it goes with the Star Wars waistcoat, so I think I'll be wearing that. It's very comfortable, it's very warm, or it can be warm, rather. Yeah, so that's the plan for Saturday. There is an evening outing. I think we'll be listening to music and potentially going to dinner at some point, so I'll need a mundane option for that. If not, I do have a pseudo dirndl that I could kind of wear. It's actually Oktoberfest weekend at the Ren Fair, which I won't necessarily be participating in because I'll be on the grounds, but not in the Ren Fair itself. So yeah, I might wear that, but it's kind of, it's a you know, it's a mundane item and kind of comfy. So I might wear that. And then Sunday, yes, Sunday is our day at the fair, so we have some talks and then the feast for lunch, and then we are free to roam about the fair for the rest of the day before I come home. And for that, I think I'm taking my green gown. Now, the green gown is great, but I did manage to find some trim to add to the skirt, but I never added it because I've been doing so many other things. So in my copious amounts of free time, or possibly just while I'm sitting around this weekend, I don't know, in my hotel room, maybe, I can hand stitch the trim to the gown. If not, I've worn the gown without it, so I'm not worried about that. But before all of that happens, I need to go to the basement storage and find all of the pieces. I think the gown is hanging. It shouldn't have any fit issues. I might have to replace a hook and eye, but I also have no problem sewing myself into it the day of. That does not bother me at all. It was a little big the last time I wore it, just a bit, and it had kind of a gap in the middle from the way the hooks and eyes were attached. So I might just have to do a couple of little tacking stitches on that. I have done no packing. Anyway, with regard to the project, I think I also have to do cuffs. I have a pair of cuffs to go, to kind of stick out from the foresleeve here. And they just kind of hook on with I think those have a button and loop closure, but they are embroidered linen. So the puffs on these four sleeves are not embroidered linen, so I need to make white cuffs to wear with that. And those don't take long, and I can hand stitch them, but I probably won't. It depends on where I'm sewing all week and what my timeline looks like. So yeah, so we still have a bunch to do. Need to finish the gown, need to finish the hood, need to make the cuffs, need to pack, need to clean my house, because it's not shareable in this moment. The studio, surprisingly, is not the problem, but I need to clean the guest areas and get some laundry done, that sort of thing. So, lots to do, no time to do it, still have a full-time job and a family and a side gig, so yeah, and none of those things have to do with getting these gown things done. So we'll see. That's your update. I don't know when the next one's going to be. And then I have a couple of tiny projects that also need to get done. And I don't know what footage I've been showing so far. I'm all over the place, and recording has not been a priority for getting all this stuff done. I made a little cover, which is modeled like a book, and it's just leftover leather and scrapbooking stuff that I have in the house. I don't scrapbook, but someone gave me a bunch of scrapbooking stuff once, and we've just been using it for arts and crafts. So it opens like this, and it's got a little S in it, and then if you flip to the back, it holds my cell phone. So I can record and hold my book. Very exciting, right? So I did that. And I next have jewelry to do. And I know I've been showing some part of that, at least this bit, which is a tiger's eye from Fire Mountain Gems. And I just took the tiger's eye cabochon and put it in a mount, which is, it's lovely. It worked out fine. I used E6000 because that's what I had on hand. The rest of the jewelry is up in the air. I normally like to wear a girdle, sash, I guess, with my Tudory gown, the Tudor gown that I already have. I might do the same because it's easier to put together than a jeweled girdle, which I do not have time for, but I have a number of options in this box here. There's pearly things in here. The problem is the colors don't quite work, so this one is like a red, has a red gem on the end, and then some of that foolishness. They don't really match what I have going on, but I don't have time to make another, again, which is fine. And jewelry doesn't have to match, but if it were going to match, I would want time to do that. So I don't really need earrings for this one, but I will probably wear them anyway because I might get sick of the hood, and then I don't want to have bare ears. I cannot deal with bare ears. Oh, they make me so sad. Look at me. But I'm about to go stand at my desk and work for 8 hours, so it's not really a concern. Anyway, what else? I think that's it. Jewelry, socks, shoes, undergarments. Oh, the shirt. So I still need to add some shirt to the shirt because I'm still dealing with that crop. But the cropped shirt is the only one that fits under the gown because it has the fitted sleeves. And let me tell you about these sleeves. They just fit. And I did a mock-up. I don't know what happened. I think because I used the lining fabric, well, what was going to be the lining fabric. What I ended up with, which you've either already seen or will see, is silk taffeta for the lining of the sleeves. I was only going to do the bottom of the sleeves, and then I just didn't. I didn't feel like piecing that together because the broadcloth is so stretchy. It's way stretchier than I expected, and I kept checking the grain, and I'm like, maybe I just, twisted it a bit. No, it's just super stretchy, and it's supposed to be just cotton. Whatever. It happens sometimes. Annoying, but not insurmountable. So the sleeves are the jacquard and the silk, and they do not stretch. They do not stretch at all. So yeah, that's a tight fit, but it's fine as long as I wear them in the exact right spot. I have just enough space, and at this point, obviously, I don't want to piece it because that means I need to take essentially everything apart. And it's just this one section right here in the bicep, tricep, chicken wing area. Oh, chicken wings. That's nice. I don't actually like chicken wings, but it's breakfast time, so anyway, so yeah, the sleeves are a wee bit tight, so I definitely have to wear the cropped shirt. But that means that I also need to add some linen to the cropped shirt so that I don't have to keep fighting it to keep it from riding up while I'm in all of the other layers. Those are the things I need to think about before I leave because I won't have any shopping time beforehand. I could potentially skip the Friday afternoon kind of pre-party, I guess, to do last minute preparation. But I'm going to have fun, so I'd rather worry about having fun and not continue trying to throw things into the bag at the last minute. Yeah, this is, it's a relaxing weekend of nerding out about Tudor history, and that's fun. That's fun. I would do it for almost any other history convention, so that's what we're going to do this weekend, and now it's time for me to go to work, so my next time to sew will be lunch break, maybe? I don't know. It might just be tonight. I'm trying not to stay up super late, so we'll see what happens. But, yeah, here we go. There is no more construction footage at this point. The hood was mostly done by hand on the couch, and I mostly followed the spirit of the pattern instructions. The base is plastic canvas. Millinery wire is stitched to that, although I just use whatever wire is on hand in the closest gauge. Instead of covering the frame in craft felt and then covering that with linen or silk, I used leftover velour from my Lieutenant Nyota Organa costume. It's just thick enough to mask the ridges in the plastic and to forgive most of my stitching sins. The inside of the frame is lined with white fabric scraps. For the wrap and lappet, I used Burnley and Trowbridge silks, and the lappet was interlined with blanket fleece to give it a little thickness.
The black velvet on the box and tubular veil was cut from a donated skirt, and I chose to pin those up on both sides as we've seen in some Holbein sketches. The front bit of the hood is decorated with glass pearls and gold beads. A welcome surprise to a pretty nerdy, history-filled weekend was this corner hotel room with a great space for recording. After check-in, I spent the late afternoon making last-minute adjustments to the ensemble, like tacking the sleeves and placard in place, and checking the connectors on all of my jewelry. So, instead of a dressing video, or me prancing about the venue gracefully, you get the least tantalizing undressing footage ever. You're welcome. Off come the foresleeves, which were closed with a hook and eye at the wrist, but not tied to the kirtle or gown sleeves at the elbow as they could have been. It was fine since I wasn't pew-pewing at aliens at this particular event, and the cuffs, secured with little buttons, also keep them on. Next is the hood, which I absolutely love and which absolutely kept my head warm all night. Then my majesty is relieved of mine jewels after I grab a pin holder. All of the finery, chain with pendant, necklace, and girdle, was assembled by me at some point in the last 20 years. The placard is pinned on the left side since that was easier for me, and the right side is whip-stitched in place. No Shastas were harmed in the pinning of this gown. Skipping around after a number of Maiden's Mule cocktails, I take off the silk wrap. I didn't lace my hair into crown braids like I normally do because I was running a bit behind schedule, but the hood was big enough to accommodate a bun at a very specific angle, and none of it moved all night. The wrap is just a folded rectangle of silk, and I didn't even hem the raw edges since I was unsure of how well it would work. Since I still have hair experiments to do with this style of hood, that's a task for another day. The spiral lacing is done with a bit of pink satin ribbon since that was what I found in the stash. Here, you can see that I didn't add any train stain protection and managed to pick up a purple substance of questionable origin. It didn't appear anywhere else on the gown, and it didn't bleed through, so huzzah for small miracles. I had a number of items to carry, like my phone battery backup and cables, so I used a set of 18th century pockets under the gown. Clearly, those cocktails were fantastic. The chances that I'm listening to Six the Musical are pretty high. As you've seen a video or two ago, the kirtle is side-laced and has a bit of that brown silk taffeta from the gown sleeves. Off it comes, and I am absolutely terrified of losing any of my totally well-sewn ouches from Truly hats, so I'm trying to be careful. Here we have the back of my pillowcase petticoat, which is tied at the front and not going to be shown in this family-friendly environment. The final layer is my newly lengthened shirt and a pair of black thigh-high socks secured around the knee with garters made from ribbon scraps. This gown was so fun to make, even with my tight deadline. I can't stress enough how much a costume can transform a person as much on the inside as it does on the outside. The way you carry yourself is different, and many times, the way you are perceived changes. I won't say that I was a social butterfly, but I was infinitely more comfortable chatting with old and new friends in my Tudor armor than I am in mundane clothes. I was even audience participated as Horatio during the Shakespeare Approves show. It was the absolute best way to be Tudor for the weekend. Thanks for watching!